So we can take a look at the emotional signature from the point of view of the upsets that we receive on a daily basis and things that are brought to us in that way. We can take a look at the emotional signature from the point of view of the way we relate to our family, and these are going to enable us to work with specific attributes. And you don't have to know what it means or understand the attribute. Just meet it at the point of the emotional signature. It's always the same way of digestion. Right? The process of digestion is the same. The thing is just recognizing it's an emotional signature. Right? Anything that causes us discomfort in our experience, that brings into our, especially emotional discomfort, where we are being upset, is a memory, is an emotional signature. It's something we're bringing into the moment that's unresolved from the past. And you can show yourself that to be true, because when you sit and be with it without condition and allow it to come to a point of resolution, you will see that very thing no longer triggers you in any way, and it actually just goes off the radar screen, right? So the next level of the work is is the one that we all get to face at some point, which is the direct intimacy with another human being, right? And it's a very challenging part of the work, because all of this is about dismantling. It's about dismantling. So I'm going to dismantle the relationship with my artificial self that I made up. I'm going to dismantle the relationship that I have with my family, right? And even when you're doing that family work, someone came to me and said, well, I don't have a brother. Work with how it is for you. Don't try and figure out how to make it work a certain way. Work with what you're given. You know what's required because it happens. That's the definition of what's required. It happens, right? And so work with what's required. It'll be given to you. In your family, there will be certain reflections that need. Some people work more on one attribute than another, right? Some people don't have a problem with the guidance system, but they have a problem with the nurturing system. Some people don't have such a problem with emotional body stuff, and but they're still not really accepting their life. Whatever it is, you don't have to even understand and this, because you can get lost in the mental body realm. We're using the mental body to get you to go to the point of the emotional signature and be with it without condition, taking all the excuses away for doing the work. Right? So, by the time we're 7 years old, our definition of what love is fully installed. It's fully installed. And what love is will be a certain resonance, a certain feeling. It's installed as a feeling, right? And that feeling becomes unconscious to us. We don't go around saying, this is the feeling I'm looking for. We don't even know we have it, right? And then we go through the puberty experience and something gets switched on, right? It's powerful energy, right? It's an energy that is a desire to go back to the causal point. Now, if you think about it, the causal point is the orgasm. Think about it. The causal point is the orgasm. Everyone wants to get back to the causal point. So there's an energy that draws us to somebody, right? And so we have a definition of love which is installed to us. When a child opens itself to this world, whatever impacts it emotionally, whatever the felt impact during that experience of the first 7 years, becomes the definition of love. And you can see that in that a person who is being abused by their partner doesn't leave. And you ask them why they don't leave, and they say, because they really love me. Right? And you can go and have an intervention and take them to a safe house. Right? And then you keep them there and keep them safe. But if you turn your back and walk away, they'll go straight back into the arms of someone who will abuse them. Because the definition of love for that person is the feeling that comes up when they get abused. It's not necessarily the abuse, but the feeling that arises as a consequence of the abuse. Because when they were a child, either there was abuse around them or they got abused. And that feeling was what they associate with love on a very primal level. That's the child's definition of love. And remember, the child is made in the image of the Creator. So it is manufacturing experiences to get love, right? And the love it's going to get is going to be equal to that resonance. So we have that definition of love, which is implanted into us by the age of 7. We then have another definition of love, which is really about a definition of how to approach love, which is a program. And this program is that when I meet the person that most reflects my stuff, right, I will start to intimidate them, right? Which is, we also call it dating, but a better word is intimidating, right? I will start to intimidate that person, and because I want that person around, because I know that they are going to fulfill my needs and wants. I see that reflection. I see that, right? And so we come together, and that's love, you know. So when you fulfill my needs and wants, I think that's love. Oh, it feels so good. You're just listening to me? No one ever did before. I'm loving you, right? So we get drawn to somebody, and the moment that attraction happens, we actually enter a program. It's like a robotic program. And we're trained from this from young. Like girls are trained that marriage is a destination, right? Marriage and breeding is a destination. Like a little girl, she's unhappy, give her a doll. This is your baby, you're practicing, right? One day you're going to grow up and pop these things out. So get with the program, right? And then you are going to get married one day. Look at the fairy tale Walt Disney made about the happy, the princess that gets whipped away by the prince, because one day your prince will come along and you'll get to wear the white dress and everyone will lavish you with gifts and it'll all be fantastic after that, right? So it's a program, all right? And if you don't run the program, you'll think something's wrong. If you get into your late 20s and your early 30s and you're still not moving towards marriage, you're like, something's wrong with me. The clock is running out. Right? People going, what's wrong with you? I know someone you should meet. You need to get this marriage thing on the road, right? Because if you don't get married, I have to question why I did. So please get married, because I did. Right? So the moment we get married, what we do is we meet this person, we're attracted to them, we get married, and then we dive into the same bed and we go to sleep together. We don't wake up together, we go to sleep together. It's a big difference, right? We lie in that person's energy field, and then sooner or later we are going to want space, right? He's going to feel a need for space, because I'm going to bed every night and I'm sleeping within the emotional imprint of another human being. How can I ever get any rest, right? In the divorce courts, all you have to say is, Your Honor, I just never get any sleep. Divorce granted, right? So we've done certain things, like we invented golf, right? Can go wandering around aimlessly, hitting a ball into a hole. At least I get some space, right? I get to feel right? So we go into that place, and once we go into that place and that thing that we thought was supposed to be there isn't there, right? And so we go, well, what can we do? Let's add something to it. Let's add children. Add children to it. Does that work? No. Add stuff, add houses, add whatever. Keep throwing things at it. And if it really just not working, then we stop. We get a divorce and we go and do it to somebody else. Find someone else that I can, right? And that's the program. That's the program. Because what's happening is once I get together with that person, I am going to start manipulating that experience. I'm not even doing it consciously. I'm going to manipulate that experience so that what my definition of love is will come to the surface, right? I will manipulate the experience. So if I'm abandoned as a child, as if my definition of love has the resonance of abandonment to it, I will enter a relationship which there's wine and roses and dating and everything and the beautiful wedding and everything. And once all that passes, right, then gradually I will manifest an experience in which abandonment arises. Right? I'll either abandon my partner or my partner will abandon me, or we'll live in a way in which we're emotionally abandoning each other. And that resonance of abandonment really is what love is to me. That's the definition of love. Not only is it my definition of love, but it's a resonance I share with my birth family. Because when I see how I'm feeling about my marriage, about what came up there, if I really look inside myself and into that felt perception, I can then look at my mother and father and I'll be able to see it there too. And if I look at the wedding, the marriage experiences of my siblings, if I look inside myself and then look there, I'll be able to see it there too. Because that's what keeps a family unit, is a dysfunctional definition of love that they all share. We share that, that's what makes us family, right? Keeps us together. So one way of dismantling this is to work consciously with another human being, but that's not always possible, and often not required in our situation. If it's required, we would encounter someone who was also into emotional body work, and we would say to them, listen, let's explore this. Let's explore this. Let's explore intimacy to the point that I can realize what my unconscious definition of love is by the way I'm interacting with you, and through that process that, right? And set myself free of that. That's not always the case. What happens is, what's normally the case is I wake up to emotional processing and the desire or the intent for intimacy in the midst of a relationship in which my partner is just not interested in those things, right? There's no, right? So it's really about realizing that wherever we are is what we require. Whoever I'm with right now is who's best going to show me my unconscious definition of love. Whoever I'm with right now is the clearest mirror of this. It's not about fiddling with them or reasoning with them, especially if they are not alchemists, right? Often an alchemist is married to someone who's not an alchemist and is in that situation. Well, that's the situation. That's what's required. And the thing then is to bring up the resonance of what is going on in that. If you look at your companion, so it's very simple. Just if you're in a relationship now, right, and you bring an awareness of your companion up, and what's the emotional signature? What's the feeling? Right? What's that? And where do you feel that in your own body? That's the resonance that stands between you and intimacy, real intimacy. In order to resolve that, when you go and stay there and be with that without condition, it's going to bring about the experiences required to bring you into deeper intimacy, right? So, when we're engaging with one other person, what we're really doing is we're taking a very close look at the relationship between the mental body and the emotional body. The relationship, the intimacy journey with another human being is looking at that part of things, that part of the mechanics. How is the mental body really being with the emotional body? And in a relationship when people are together, it really, to see that is in the sexual experience. The sexual experience will show what that's about. Because in the sexual experience, as things, not initially, because initially both partners are enjoying the sexual experience because it's new and it's all of that, right? And then it becomes, then the emotional signatures start coming in, right? And as the emotional signatures start to rise, one of the people in the partnership is going to play emotional body, and one is going to play mental body. And the identifying which is quite easy. Eventually, one person wants to have the sexual experience, and the other one has a headache, right? It's like what happens is there's pursuit, and there's sedation. The pursuit is the mental body. The sedation is the emotional body, right? Who's ever playing those roles, right? Because what's happening is the mental body, within our experience, within ourselves, no one else, just within ourselves. When I haven't integrated my emotional imprinting, My mental body is God. It's taken over as God, right? And what it's doing is it's sedating and controlling and manipulating the emotional body to get the feeling it wants, right? And the emotional body, in response to that, is sedating. It's actually shutting down and closing off, right? Because it's being manipulated. So the mental body pursues and the emotional body sedates. The consequence of that, or the problem with that is, it's the emotional body that is the link between the vibrational and the mental and the physical. It flows from the vibrational, through the emotional, through the mental, and into the physical. When the emotional body closes down because it's being pursued, it's being manipulated to generate feelings it's not feeling, and the feelings it is feeling are not being acknowledged but sedated and controlled, it goes into it closes down, and because it closes down, the vibrational can't come through. And when it does come through, it comes through in a distorted way. But the awareness of the vibrational is just not there at all. And so at the mental, then what we do is we try and find the vibrational experience by mentally manipulating the physical world, or by mentally manipulating the emotional. So the first step in the journey of really looking at that, I call it manipulation, right? And manipulation is a good analogy for manipulation is this. A boy is born as a little boy. The first thing that happens to a little boy is a nipple is thrust in his face, right? Because he's being fed, right? So he gets his life force from this nipple, right? Only for a while. After a while, the nipple is taken away and hidden away forever, right? And he spends the rest of his life looking for the nipple, right? It's called man-nipple-nation, right? Manipulation. Right? That is manipulation, right? It's the idea that I can get what it is I'm looking for from you. That is the causal point of the vampiric activity, right? I can get the vibrational by manipulating the emotional and by manipulating the physical, taking the physical as an accomplice to manipulate the emotional, right? Physical substances, physical practices, whatever, to manipulate my emotional body to get a feeling that I think I should be having, which I think is spiritual or vibrational or whatever, or pleasure. And that comes into the manipulation, the sexual manipulation of one partner on the other, right? Where the one partner is wanting pleasure and the other partner has just become an orgasmobile, right? So in seeing that relationship, that's a very important thing to see, right? So in a relationship, when there are two people and they've fallen into those roles, where the one is pursuing sexuality and the one is sedating it, it's at that point that a great healing can occur. And that is where sexuality is so powerful. Sexuality is so powerful in showing us manipulation and awakening us to that we either run from it and say, I'm going to be celibate. I can't handle this. Okay, I'm going to go and live in a monastery and just like no sex. Jesus is my sexual partner because he never shows up. So that's right. I can either do it that way, or I can actually completely go overboard and go into sexual addiction, right? And use the sexual experience as just to get all the pleasure and right? As the means to apply a feeling that I think I should be having. The road is actually the middle road, right? The middle road. The thing about the sexual experience is that when it's unconscious, it's always destination consciousness. In other words, the orgasm is destination consciousness. The orgasm is destination consciousness. And everyone in this room is only interested in the orgasm. We don't know it. We don't know it till we see it in our behavior, right? Maybe my orgasm is earning $50,000 a month. Maybe my orgasm is accomplishing this thing. Maybe my orgasm is getting that person to do that thing. Whatever the destination is, whatever I want, when I get what I want, that's my orgasm, right? And so we all operate by destination consciousness. The mental body can only operate by destination orgasm consciousness. Because for the mental body, there is a beginning and an ending to everything, right? And it wants to get to the ending because by the ending, then it can get what it wants and move on to something else. That's why you know, for example, that the Bible was written by the mental body. It says, in the beginning. Only the mental body would think there was a beginning. Right? And at the end of it, it says, this is the end of the world, right? The end, the revelation, the end. Only the mental body is going to have something that has a beginning and an ending to it, right? So it's a mental body's version of what God is, right? So the thing to see that is, in the sexual experience, for example, in the relationship, it's important to identify, and this is when you're working consciously with someone. If you're not working consciously with someone, they would find this type of work absolutely offensive, right? Because whoever is sexually pursuing another in that relationship, that person has to relinquish the orgasm. You don't get to have an orgasm anymore. You agree? I'm not going to have an orgasm anymore. And for mostly the pursuer is the male, because the mental body is the pursuer. And when a male stops having an orgasm or puts the orgasm aside, the big question will come up. Well, if I can't have an orgasm, then why the hell am I doing this? Right? Which shows the destination consciousness. Right? Also, whoever's pursuing then puts aside the luxury of initiating sexuality. Right? In other words, what is being put forward here is that the emotional body is going to be free of pursuit. Right? It's going to be set free of being pursued and being an orgasmobile for the mental body. And when that happens to the emotional body will then, when it's not being pursued, it will start to see where it's sedating things, where it's shutting off, just instinctively, right? And once it stops doing that, that's only when it begins to open, like a flower. And when it opens, the vibrational comes rushing through and blesses the mental and blesses the physical. And then the mental realizes it wasn't God after all, that there actually is the vibrational, right? So in working intimately with another human being, it's really about getting to the core of manipulation, getting to the core of what manipulation is. Because what's really happening in the world is that we say, love is everything, God is love. What the hell does this mean, right? What it really is everything is the vibrational. Everything is the vibrational. And the vibrational moves through the emotional. And according to the dysfunctional imprints in the emotional body, it then comes out the other side in a distorted form. So the vibration of peace comes through, goes through the distortion of anger in the emotional body, and comes out as angry thinking and angry behavior in the world. It's actually still peace. It's just been distorted into, it's still the vibrational, right? So what happens is we're in a situation, all of us on this planet, where love repeatedly comes to us. And so it comes to us, and it comes to us and says, can you set me free? Can you set me free? Can you be the one person to set me free? And we say, sure, as long as you agree to these conditions, that you may get married to me, and you sign up and you do this and you do that in place. In other words, we put it in a box. And if you put anything in a box, you can't see what it is. Right? So the intimacy experience is when we are going to get to the causal point of putting love into a box. And one of the ways we put love into a box in this world is marriage, right? So there are beings that are going to get married, and that marriage is going to serve their purpose, because marriage is a great condition. Marriage is not about being, marriage is about doing. That's why we say, I do, right? I do. Not I be, I do, right? And in marriage, you're always going to marry if you are attracted to marry someone, you're always going to marry your parents. There's no way out of it. You're going to marry someone who reflects your definition of love, and your definition of love is installed by the parents, and so therefore we marry our parents, and then when we marry someone, we get them to play the role of parent by fulfilling our needs and wants emotionally, and the moment they fulfill that role, now we can't be with them, because I don't want to be with my parents. All right, I want to get away from that. Right. So that structure has to be dismantled too. That condition we place on being together has to be dismantled. Marriage serves religion, politics, and commerce. It does not serve the people within the experience. It doesn't. Right? We can awaken within it. And awakening within it is very powerful, right? And then we can redefine what it is for us. But it's not another box that we put love in, right? So this is a very difficult part of the journey. A very difficult part of the journey is when we're starting to take all the conditions off what love is. And all the conditions of how I'm going to be with you. It's very difficult. It's the most challenging part of the work, right? It's really like that idea that I can't be on my own, that there's got to be somebody for me in this world, that I have a soulmate, that there's going to be someone to complete me. All of that nonsense has to go. Because all of that idea that there's someone there causes me to go looking, seeking to find someone to manipulate to fulfill that, right? And once we clean that out, then we're no longer wandering around the world looking for the person to manipulate, right? Looking for the person that I can intimidate, right? We don't even know, right? But it's first about taking care of that in ourselves, so that love can eventually come to us and we can set it free. And that's the powerful thing about if you get involved in any intimacy work with a person, it's the person that you are going to set free. And by setting them free, you are going to set yourself free, right? But it's hard. We don't want to if we come across anything that gives us the resonance, we want to cage it, box it, kill it, whatever, right? So the intimacy part of the journey is very challenging, and not everyone is going to enter that part of the experience, right? As in working with another human being. It's not required for everybody. But we're all in it. If we're in a relationship right now, we're in the experience we're supposed to be. That's the experience that's required for us to start seeing that emotional signature, right? To start seeing that emotional signature. So let's take just 5-10 minutes out, and then we're going to come back and we're going to enter questions and answers and see where that takes us. Right. Okay, so does anyone have a question?
When you talk about the unspeakable, what is that?
Actually, you can keep that. When I speak about the unspeakable, that's a paradox in itself. The unspeakable is the vibrational experience, the direct experience of the vibrational. And there's a resonance. Truth has a resonance to it. It's an experience. It's also going along the pathway of awareness. So truth has a resonance. So initially it's an experience, which has no words and concepts, and it's a direct experience. And then if we go into the emotional realm, then what we do is we have a way of communicating it through parable or analogy or metaphor, right? So I can say, God is like, having an experience of God is like when the drop falls back in the ocean. You're not really saying anything. Because to have that experience can't be explained. There is no vocabulary for it. So the language of symbol and metaphor is the kind of emotional language. And then that's close to the truth. So for example, a person like Jesus spoke in parable, because the nature of parable is, if I use parable, you can meet that where you are. You can meet that where you are. If I say, God is like a drop falling into the ocean, you will each have your own way of encountering with that. It won't require you to think, to study. You can encounter with that on an emotional level, even if you don't realize you're doing that. Then, if we go from out of the emotional and we enter the mental, then we can say, God is E is equal to MC squared. Oh, now we have a problem, right? Because now you have to try and understand what I'm saying. So now you have to leave your experience and go to the library or go to the college and study the books on quantum physics, etc., to understand what I'm saying about God, right? Now that's taking you even further away from the truth, right? Or if we can go into the physical, which is the furthest away, can say, if you want to know what God is, go and sit under a fig tree for 12 days and only eat figs every day. And you'll find it's a really messy business and there's stuff you have to go and do. But it'll take you completely, the more you go into the physical doing of something, it'll take you even further away from what the experience is. So we first have physical activities to try and find the truth and all our practices and everything. And then we go into mental understandings and sit around discussing what is God and all of the stuff. The thing is, it's pointless discussing what God is. The only thing of value is to invite someone into their own experience of that. The moment that they start entering that, then leave them alone, right? But to sit and discuss God, like let's talk about God, it's pointless. Let's talk about what I am. It's pointless. Because what we are, what God is, and even where we are is the vibrational. The vibrational is the answer to those three questions. But to encounter that experientially and have a direct experience, when someone does, there is no words for it. There's none, right? And then we start with images and symbols, and then we do words, and then we do physical practices. Each one is taking us further away from the truth. And that's what I'm saying about the story is never true. Although it can be true to us if we're in the mental realm, the story itself is never true. Because underlying the story is an emotional signature, and that emotional signature is true for this moment, but when I integrate it, I'll realize even that emotional signature wasn't true, because underlying that there is peace and love that wasn't distorted. Once that distortion is removed, all we enter is peace and love. All there is love, the vibrational. Our encounter with it is according to how it's distorted through our emotional body. Yeah, you can't talk about the vibrational. That's kind of partly why this is my last presentation. Because while you talk about it, like even in my own journey, whenever I'm standing here explaining it, I'm depriving myself of fully entering it, right? It's a separation that takes place. It's like, God's really cool, right? God's really humble. God allows me to explain God to God as long as I'm trying to figure things out. But as soon as I figured it out, God just wants to be entertained, right? And so this trying to explain, get into what you love. What is your fascination? Dive into your joy and just immerse yourself in that. And what is the vibrational will be on. The answer will come. And how you personally interact with that will be different to how I or anyone else does. You'll have your own personal way of relating to that, relationship with that. You have your own personal relationship with it. To say this is the vibrational, this is what it looks like, this is what it feels like, that is what it's definitely not. All right. So that's the thing is, first of all, we have a very physical encounter with the world. Usually we're going through some sort of physical discomfort. This kind of wakes us up. And then we try and understand what's happening. We go through the mental. And then we realize that underneath it is the feeling. So we go into the feeling, those blocked feelings, and we block those energetic circumstances. And as they open up, then there's the revelation. The revelation is what comes through the vibrational. And it's almost, it castrates it to put it into words, in a way. It causes it to become impotent. And it's useful though, it's useful, like this is useful to invite, all we're doing here, all I'm up to here since yesterday is inviting you to accept your life as valid. That's it. That's it. The moment you accept your life to be the truth, it's the game over. Game over. No more searching, no more thinking, no more asking anyone else what's going on. Right? But because we're so indoctrinated into believing that the spiritual experience is other than this, we've got to break that hypnosis. This is it. right? And one of the biggest cons ever played on us, that we've ever played on ourselves, is the word afterlife. There is no afterlife. There is no life after life. There is just life. And this is it. And so most of us are saying, well, I'm married to this person and it kind of sucks, but eventually we'll die and I will not be with that person anymore. So I'm living for my afterlife. Or I'm in this job and it's really hard, but eventually I'll get too old to work and I'll die and there'll be an afterlife. And so I'm waiting for my afterlife so that I can really live. But there is no afterlife. There isn't an afterlife. An afterlife is a delusion. Even a person who transitions out of this experience that we're having and enters a different one isn't in an afterlife. They're still in their life. Death is only visible to us, right? You've seen other people die. Other people around you have died and disappeared. But they themselves, when they die, they don't know they've died. They don't have a death experience. Death is only something we see happening to other people. We've never died. There is no, you don't have a memory of dying. There's no memory of not being alive. There's no such memory that exists. Right? So tuning into that and then realizing, wow, I'm sitting in the midst of the most profound spiritual experience and I can't even contain it. Hell, I can hardly contain my temper, let alone an awareness of God. It's like, I want to contain full awareness of God, but I can't contain my temper. Right? And so that's what the containment practice is about. Containing the fear, containing the anger, containing the grief enables us to develop the capacity to contain more of an awareness of what we are, what God is, and where we are right now. And where are we? Right? And that really, that answer to those questions can't come through the mental body. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much we read What is Enlightenment magazine. It's not going to answer it. It's not. Because the answer is a direct experience and it begins through felt perception. We can feel it. You can feel that you've always been alive. Mental body can't get it. No, I'm 46 years old. I've only been here 46, so, and maybe there's reincarnation. And Jesus was smart. When he came back from India, he didn't teach reincarnation. He realized how lazy it makes people. Like, I'm not going to do it now. I'll just wait till my next life. Jesus says, I'm going to teach people that stuff, right? He'll just go like, I'll just do the as you sow, so shall you reap. But we'll not go any deeper than that. Right? Because the idea of an afterlife is escapist. Just this one. Like really show up in this one. This one is the portal to everything. And that's the most profound thing is we are portals. And everyone is, we're watching like science fiction movies where they open the portal and people step through and all that. That's amazing. It's groovy, but there's no more power, nothing close as astounding as what we are. A portal. A portal that has a pathway through it. That you can go from the vibrational through the emotional, mental, and into the physical. And while you're standing in the midst of the physical, you can reopen your awareness to the vibrational. And that is what is required now. Because the vibrational is the causal point of everything. It really does know no order of difficulty if we allow it to be the causal point. And the hope of this world is in a human being standing where they are in their lives and opening their portal to the vibrational. To be in the world but not of it. To directly have that pathway open into the vibrational. Right? That's the alternative energy source we're looking for. Right. That's it right there. Open the portal. Right. And all it's required is the emotional body. That's why when I say the emotional imprinting of our first 7 years is deliberate. It's deliberate. It's not very pleasant if we're in victim mentality and blaming the world. And in that, if we're in the lower chakras. But once we move ourselves up and we start processing it, we'll see it's deliberate because whatever happened to us in the first 7 years of this life experience, whatever happened, contains everything that's required for us to open the portal. It contains everything that's required for us to open the portal. It's already given. It's already there. Right? It's already given. It's just a matter if we want to respond to it or we want to spit it out. So I have no idea what the question was, but... Another question?
So earlier you spoke about our ability to relate, or we learn about ourselves through our father, our mother, our sister, and our brother. Do our children send us mirrored messages, or what?
Always.
Pick up from that.
Yeah, what we don't like and try and change about our children is what we haven't dealt with in ourselves. So we just put them on Ritalin and so, our children, especially when you get into emotional work, emotional processing work, your children are really going to play along. They're going to go, oh yeah, now they're paying attention. Let's show them what's really going on with them. Right? Our children will reflect that. And that's why the intimacy journey is such an important one for those who are going to enter it consciously, is when two people come together, right, they are the portal through which how love is brought into the world. They are the portal for love into the world, right? Your lover is the one that shows you what love is, not the one that satisfies your pleasures. And so the lover comes together with the lover to show what love is. And in the showing of that, to absolutely see what love is, requires that I integrate all my definitions about love that I've made, all my conditions on love. I have to resolve those, which is very painful work. It's very difficult. That bottom of the barrel stuff is very difficult. But once two people have accomplished that, then when they have a child, they no longer imprint that child, right? They no longer imprint that child. And because they're not imprinting that child, they're not placing conditions in that child's emotional body that causes the vibrational to be distorted in the world, right? Because the definition of love is what's passed on from parent to child, parent to child, parent to child. So when two beings come together and have a child, in that moment they are being a portal for love in the world, or a definition of love, right? And that's why these teachings are ancient. They're not new. We just have them in a new vocabulary, right? So for example, when two beings come together and they've done emotional body work, they've cleansed their emotional body, and they have a child, that's called a divine conception, right? So it's called a virgin birth. A virgin birth is when there is no imprinting on the child, right? So Jesus is, we're led to believe that Jesus was born, there was no sex involved. The dad was in the back doing carpentry. He's not involved. That's our archetype, right? The dad wasn't involved. He wasn't even there when the conception took place. The child was born, right? But it's actually not that. It's that those two individuals, Joseph and Mary, went and did an immense amount of work on themselves before they agreed to do all this emotional work on themselves, so that when this child came through, there was minimal imprinting, right? That's a virgin birth. And when you comprehend that, you will realize why Jesus was born away from people. Like they were at this inn, but you think they couldn't get a room in the inn? No, they didn't want to get a room in the inn. Why would you want your child born around drunkards right? You would want your child born around presences that were not imprinting the child. It's less likely you're going to be imprinted by a donkey than a drunk man, right? So you get the child born around animals in a stable, keep it clear of the imprint, right? So all of that, you become aware of that, but through our own experience. That's the whole thing about this person Jesus, right? There's the teachings about Jesus and there's the teachings of Jesus. And they're not the same. Throughout history, the teachings about Jesus people have tried to kill off all the teachings of Jesus people, right? And just about now, we almost only have the teachings about Jesus people. The teachings of people, they're very few and far between, but they're rising up again, right? And the teachings of Jesus have always been here, and they are right in our face, right? So we can show that, for example, let's reframe that, because at the beginning yesterday I was talking about the state of hypnosis, the state of blindness and deafness. And it's not a blindness and deafness that we're used to, because we think of blindness and deafness according to being physically blind and audibly deaf. But actually it's a blindness and deafness because our real eyes are shut down, right? So we had this example about the boss, right? The boss at work, going in and getting upset by the boss. We looked at all that today. So let's now take a look at the last few moments of Jesus' life and see that the teaching was already given, right? In the garden, from the moment Jesus gets a kiss on the cheek, right? That is, we call it the moment of betrayal, right? When I come to work and my boss looks at me in a certain way and I get triggered, whenever you get upset, take a look. What's happening? What's happening is you've been betrayed. It's the kiss on the cheek. Because what's upsetting me is this person that I've created and manufactured to please you is not, you're betraying that, but you're not acknowledging that person, right? You're not seeing and gaining and approving of that person that I made up, right? And I feel that person has been betrayed, right? So after we get betrayed, after we get upset, we get taken before Pontius Pilate, the judge, right? And Pontius Pilate asks a very important question, right? So Pontius Pilate will say, "Are you who they say you are? Are you who they say you are? Are you the person you created out of your emotional imprint so that you felt safe and appreciated in this world? Are you really that person? Because if you're not who they say you are, in other words, if you're not the person that the world has been interacting with, that you've made up to interact with the world, then you have to die. But if you are that person, I'll let you go." Right? So that's what's happening. To Jesus, "Are you the king of the Jews?" No. That's what other people say. That's not what I am. So he's not going to defend that, right? And because he doesn't admit to that, he has to die. If you're not that person, you must die. So in Jesus' experience, he gets sentenced to death. And you can be sure that because he's having a human experience, fear came up. Not only fear in his experience, but fear all around him, of those who loved him, right? Fear, right? Did he say, "Hang on a moment, that was Judas. It wasn't me, it was Judas," right? Or, "No, actually I am the king of the Jews, so if you just let me off, I'll leave and go and behave myself somewhere else," right? There was none of that. He didn't portray any fear because he had to contain the fear, because the fear is nutrition. It's an emotional nutrition. And then after that, he takes the walk up to the crucifixion. Along that walk, people spit on him, throw things at him, shout at him, swear at him, right? Place yourself on such a walk. How would you feel if people treated you that way? You would be enraged. You would be enraged. Was there any anger? No, he never showed any anger. Why? Contained it. Be without condition. The whole teaching of Jesus, of everything that he ever went through, that was ever recorded, is about being without condition. Being without condition. Here's her teachings, right? And so as he arrives at the crucifixion, who's there? Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, and a lot of people that really love him, that don't understand what's going on, that this is a setup. Right? This is deliberate. This is a teaching being placed in the physical that we are going to require at a certain point in the evolution of our species. And once we awaken to a certain emotional awareness, we will be able to receive the teaching. Right? no one can get this, and there's all this grief going on around the cross, right? Does he exhibit grief? Does he? No. Contain it. Contain the grief. So he's taken the walk from the fear, the anger, and grief, the pathway of awareness. And then the moment of crucifixion. The crucifixion is the symbol of alchemy. That act of crucifixion. Because when I realize that when I get triggered by my boss and I get upset, and I'm now in this moment of betrayal, there is nothing that I can do with my hands to bring resolution. Everything I do with my hands is going to be a means to feel better and sedate and control my experience. So I might as well hammer my hands down. They are no use to me in alchemy, right? And when I realize that it doesn't matter where I go on this planet, I can go to sacred sites, temples, anywhere. I can go and hide in a cave in the Himalayas, but wherever I go, there I am. Because my feet cannot save me from the work, from what's going on in my own heart. When it comes up, when I'm set up, I'm going to be set up wherever I am, right? So my feet are no use, so I might as well hammer my feet down. And there I go. I'm now officially crucified. And now the work begins. Because if I struggle when I'm in that place, I only enter experiences of greater suffering. But if I stay there, if I stay with it, I will go through a death experience. That part of me will die, right? A part of me will die. And I will know I'm going through a death experience because my mental body will say, I can't do this anymore. This is not working. There is no such thing as a God. I'll go into a very dark place as I die. Death is difficult. You can't make it easy. It's death, right? It's a death experience. And we know Jesus went through a death experience because he got to the place of saying, Father, why have you forsaken me? He went through his own death experience. And then came through on the other side, right? Raised himself from the dead. And at the moment, on this planet, we are being crucified left, right, and center. The planet as a whole is being crucified. Because every time we are brought something we cannot do anything about, that is the point of crucifixion. Can you be with that? Can you be with that without condition? Because being with that without condition is what's going to bring about the experiences that bring resolution, right? So all those teachings are already there. They're not new. They've been there all. It's like the idea that Jesus is going to come and save me, he already did. He showed me how to save myself. He showed me how to save myself. He's not going to disempower me. I'll come and fetch you out of the mess, take you off, just say a few good things. No, I've shown you how to heal yourself, right? I've shown you how to be the savior of your own world, right? And I won't take that away from you because your fear, anger, and grief, I'm not going to come and take it away from you because they're your gems. It's what your fear, anger, and grief is what enables you to develop the capacity to perceive the vibrational while you're in the physical, to be in the world and not of it, right? So if someone had come to me 15 years ago and taken my neurological disorder away and laid their hands on me, hey, hallelujah, brother, hey, let me take that away. Shooks. Right, wow. Imagine. No book, no insights, no. My entire journey would have been robbed, taken from me, because someone fixed me, right? So it's not about being fixed. What we're given is what we require, not only to awaken to the vibrational, but to bring forth the gifts that come from it. When we awaken to the vibrational experience, when we integrate our emotional body and awaken those capacities, we automatically radiate gifts to everyone around us. We become like the peach tree. We got peaches for everybody, right? Not only that, we've got shade and all those sorts of things, right? So it's every part of our experience is valuable and required and precious and given to us with great amount of love. This is what you require. This is what you require. I don't want that. Right. That's where the suffering comes in. When I reject what's given to me. Right? Evil is really the word live spelt backwards. If you look at the word evil, so it's really about any behavior I engage in where I empower the world as the causal point of my behavior, right, is going to lead me into behaviors that are only destructive to myself and to people around me. And anything that leads me into believing that serves that purpose.
Well, let me just tell you what happened. I was a tiny little girl.
Right.
I was youngest in my family. my older brother said to my mother, all we have to do is kill Daddy to get the money. I knew my daddy deserved love, and I always loved my daddy. I had a really good daddy, and I just don't know what to make of all that.
Well,
Because it's been a repeated...
yeah, but it's a great story, and the story won't help you. Underlying it is an emotional signature, and that's what this is all about. You really have to let go of the story. You have to let go of the story. As long as you stay in the story, you are lost, you are trapped, you are wandering in the wilderness.
Okay, I just recognized
Yeah.
it after 56
Yeah.
years.
Yes.
I mean, I had forgotten that incident
Right.
until they
Right.
tried to kill me again.
Right. It's really important to get out of the story, and it's very hard. It's very challenging to get out the story. Believe me, I know that. But there is nowhere to go in the story. While we're in the story, we wander in the wilderness. It's not even our story, it's been passed along. If you want your peace and resolution and all of that comes from the feeling that's going on underneath what you're trying to tell me there. Underneath that, there's a feeling. I can feel it from here, right? It's so powerful. That's your that is your peace, right? And you can either take that or you can run from it into the story. It doesn't matter what happened to any of us when we were children. It's whether we respond or we react to it. There isn't anyone sitting in this room who had a profoundly happy childhood. And if we say we had a happy childhood, it means what I did was I took all the unpleasant stuff and I moved it out of my awareness and I remember the pleasant stuff and so I had a happy childhood. But actually, so being in this world is very challenging because we are conditional vibrational beings in a very conditional experience. There is nothing comfortable about that, right? So it's traumatic to enter into it. But in itself, it's a gift, right? And so the gift given to you is going to be different to the one given to you. It's no good comparing it. And as long as we stay in the story, hell, if therapy worked, why would people stay in for 15 years, right? The fact that it doesn't, it shows that it doesn't work because people keep staying in it. If it worked, we'd be able to stop. If a doctor could cure anything, we'd only need one on the planet. Think about it. So just get out of the story. Go to the emotional signature. Right? As long as you stay in the story, as long as you stay in the story, you'll be after the cookies and the tea. That's the only thing that'll be relevant. And your entire life will be focused on that. And you won't hear what's going on outside, and you won't remember yourself outside the story. You want to remember yourself outside the story. You know, there's 3 stories we can tell. And we all tell 3. We all have the possibility of telling the 3rd. Most of us tell the first. Few of us get to tell the second. And very few get to tell the 3rd. Right? And the first story is the bad story. The bad story is all the terrible things that happened in my life. The hardships, how life did me a bad deal, how nothing went the way it was supposed to. That's my bad story, right? It's the victim and victor story. And in that story, I kind of stay down here in the lower energy centers, right? And I stay immersed in the fear, anger, and the grief. And the world happens to me, and I'm continually either trying to overcome the world or run from the world and defend myself from it. Then, if we get into the emotional work and we start to feel the signature underlying the story, that will bring our energy up into this area, right? And we want to tell the good story. The good story is when I can integrate my emotional signatures and gain the juice out of that, right? Gain the juice out of that. Once I've told the good story, okay, now I have a good and a bad story. But there's another story, right, which I like to call the legend. And each of us here has a legend, right? And the legend looks like this. I'm standing on the edge of a ledge, right? And I'm on the edge of the ledge, and my bad story looks like this. I shouldn't be on this ledge. I'm going to kill myself. It's terrible. Why am I on the ledge, right? That's the bad story. And the good story is when I start to stand up and learn to gain my balance on the ledge, right? And I go, wow, being on this ledge taught me how to stand in balance. Amazing. I'm glad I'm on this ledge, right? That's good. It's great that this happened to me. And then the legend is when I go to the edge of the ledge, the end of the ledge end, right? And I jump off. Right? I take flight into the unknown. In other words, I dismantle all the structures that are built out of my emotional signature. I dismantle all the boxes that are made to keep me safe, to keep God out. And then leap. And everyone here has a legend. As a planet, we even have a legend. Our legend for our planet at the moment is 2012. It's our legend. Like something wonderful may happen in 2012, right? Well, so everyone has their own legend. I can't tell you what my legend is, it wouldn't make sense to you. You can't tell me what yours is. But to discover your legend is to become a free agent. Liberation is emotional. Liberation is emotional, right? Until I liberate myself from my emotional imprinting, I really am moved around like a puppet by the external world. I mean, that's how politics is. Politics is about pressing the right buttons. A political strategist is someone who knows what the buttons are and says to the person who's running for a position, if you press these buttons in this order, you're going to get the job, right? Because you will get the right responses from people. And you can see that because a politician, you can ask them about immigration at this point and they'll evade you, they'll say nothing, right? And then 2 weeks or 3 weeks later, someone asks a question about immigration. They're very detailed about it because now their strategist says this is a good time to talk about immigration. That'll press the right buttons. And it's about pressing the right buttons. Whoever presses the right buttons will get in, right? The right fears, the right angers, the right hopes, right, will get in. It's like playing a song, bang, bing, bang, bang. And we do that to each other when we're in a relationship with each other. Right? We press each other's buttons. We know the buttons. Right? Boom, bang, boom, boom, right? It's the same with advertising. Advertising is very simple, manipulation of the emotional body, right? If you buy this, you will feel really sexy. Or skinny. Right? And if you believe it, you'll buy it. You'll buy it tomorrow, right? Because what it is, it's saying, I will give you a feeling that you are not emotionally mature enough to give to yourself. I will provide that for you, right? And when someone else provides that feeling, yes, you get the feeling, I buy the new car and I feel like the man because I got the new car. But after a while, that feeling subsides because it came to me from externals. It wasn't something I was able to give myself. When I'm able to give myself, when I get my sexy back myself, like from doing my work and doing my intimacy work, and I get my sexy back, hey, I feel pretty sexy in this body. I don't even need anyone to look at me to feel sexy. I just feel sexy, right? Right? When I get that, I don't lose that. No one can sell me stuff on that level of telling me they're going to make me feel, I already feel my sexy. I got sexy. I got my sexy back, right? A lot of this work is about getting your sexy back. Any more questions? I'll get it.
On your website, you have an article, Here Comes the Sun. Do you still have that same view, or has it changed? Or do you wish to address it at this time?
On my website, there's an article called Here Comes the Sun. And do I still have that same point of view? And do I wish to address it? Yes, no, and all of the above.
Okay.
Yeah, we have an idea. It's like we have this, the mental body believes it so much believes that it's God, that it believes it's also responsible for everything going on in the universe, right? And so we have a planet that's heating up and all sorts of things going on, and we say, oh no, we're doing it. Or the politicians will say, you're doing it. Now you need to pay certain taxes to get that done. You need to do, but actually, the entire solar system is warming up. Every planet in the solar system is heating up. Now I'm wondering how our cars are causing Mars to heat up. Never been able to figure that out. But apparently it's so, right? Apparently because there's global warming on all the planets. They're all heating up. They've been observed over the last few years, the planets are all heating up. There's something going on in our entire solar system, right? So we can tell a story about what that's about and try and do something about it. Or we can really awaken ourselves to the fact that I am the light of the world. The sun is the light of our world. The sun facilitates us very intimately. Right? And so we may think that we're running the show until we get hit by a really big solar flare, and then we'll realize, we weren't in control in the first place. Right? But if anyone's interested in the sun, and you can go and read that article, and already that article is saying is that when our memories, okay, get this, our memories work through magnetics. We repel certain memories and we attract certain memories. We repel certain feelings and we attract certain feelings. And we are masters at pushing stuff out of our awareness, right? That memories, as in memories, I'm talking about emotional signatures, felt experiences. We push them out of our awareness. We're masters, right? What happens is our energetic field, or our magnetic field, our ability to magnetically push memories around, is completely connected to the Earth's magnetic field. And when the Earth's magnetic field starts going through a shift, like it's going through, it's not New Age wah-wah, you can see that scientifically they can watch the Earth's magnetic field shifting, right? And the sun's magnetic field shifts every now and then, it just at the poles reverse. When those things go on, we are intimately affected by that. And what happens is, every now and then, that on this planet, we go through an experience in which there's a major shift in the and that causes our shift in our own magnetic field, and our capacity to keep our memories suppressed and sedated is removed. Right? And suddenly the stuff we were pushing away is coming up. But it's not coming up as memories in our head. It's coming up as what's happening around us. And when that comes up, it's an opportunity for us to cleanse that, to gain insight from that, right? And if we can there's two things we can do. We can either attack the memory, or we can do the work. So for example, what's going on in Iraq is a memory. What's going on in between the Jews and the Palestinians? Memory. Right? What's going on with the Chinese? Memory. These are memories. These are ancient wars from the past that are coming up. Right? Even in our own circumstances, memories. And what's happening is more and more of these memories are bubbling up on the planet because we're in the midst of a cleanse. And part of that cleanse is facilitated by the sun, by the activity on the sun. So it's happening, it's like we're being facilitated. And that's when the wheat gets separated from the chaff, right? It's called the harvest. I go back into the past and I harvest all these unintegrated emotional signatures. I harvest them. I bring them into this moment and I gain more presence, right? That's the harvest. Right? So the whole thing about this work is, don't believe me. Really, don't believe me. Just because I can explain it in a certain way that makes it pretty interesting. Don't believe me. Believe your experience. Enter an experience and watch the consequences. Enter an experience, watch the consequence. Experience, consequence. Let the consequences be your teaching. Watch those consequences, right? They will show you. And then when you embrace the consequences as your teacher, you've found your greatest teacher. There is no greater teacher than that. Will never lie to you. Never, never lie. When you go into that emotional signature and you bring it to resolution, watch the consequences. Claim your power back. That's your power. Absolute power. Right? And I think let's leave it there for today. Right? So I encourage you to go onto, if any of you haven't, to go onto the Presence portal and just explore the website. There's lots of free stuff, and I'll be putting on more recordings over the next week or so. And some of this, what we're doing here, will be popped onto YouTube at some point. So watch out for that. And explore the material, and as you go deep into your experience, the material will speak to you in a different way. But it always go into your experience. Remember, the most important teaching is your experience is valid. It's valid. Embrace it as such, and then things really start moving up. All right. So thank you very much for coming. Appreciate it.